Welcome back to Daybreak, and of course we are continuing with the conversation here, reviewing the news just before we call in Dr. Evans Kidero, and looking at the story on the front page of the Daily Nation. Crisis as Ministry delays school cash. That's the story that is on page 2. Schools in crisis as state delays release of funds for tuition, and the details are that this is the government has introduced free secondary school education last year, for which it pays 22,224 shillings per student per year. The national and extra county schools in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nyeri, Thika and Eldoret, the government also says pays 22,244 shillings, while parents provide up to 53,000, bringing the total fee to 75,000 per year. But now what is apparent is that the ministry is yet to release that money, of course affecting the operations at the schools. And I'm just wondering, what would be so difficult for the Ministry of Education to release these funds in good time and ensure that running of services at the schools are in good time?
I think the economy has slowed down, and we have to be honest with ourselves. If the economy has slowed down, how much of the government money is committed in paying off debts and interest to foreign debts? Think about Eurobond, think about SGR. If those are the priorities the government is spending its money on, but it's not collecting enough taxes. You're not collecting enough taxes. Why? Because economic activity has slumped. So we really need to think about a stimulus package that can boost and get money circulating in the economy, and that money the government can therefore collect more taxes from it and use it to provide these urgent services that we need, including funding of education, which is a constitutional commitment. It's in our Sustainable Development Goals, Vision 2030. It's not in the Big Four agenda, but I really think it should have been in the Big Four agenda, because education changes everything, and I think there's an interest on education from so many levels. If you look at this story about getting the funding to the schools, if you look at the story about rights of children with from different backgrounds, what are the rules about school uniform? There's a story on page 10 about religion and Rastafaris, can they go to school? What are the regulations if they are going to public school for uniform or not? What accommodations can you make for them? On page 15, there's a story about schoolgirl mothers, teenage mothers. How much time do you need to give them a policy to go out there and have a healthy pregnancy, nurse their babies, and guarantee them they can come back to school and finish their education?
That's right.
You know, you cannot punish a girl because she became a mother and say mothers who are young are denied the right of education. So this is a whole range of issues. But I think there's a bigger issue, a story that's been running and Citizen ran with it. I went to Starehe Boys Center. I grew up in Kibera. I got a sponsor through Starehe Boys Center, and it's changed my life, and to this year, Starehe is celebrating 60 years. And that's something we have to be proud of, because despite the headline about the one boy and his family who were at the gate camping there and were not admitted, Starehe has succeeded over 60 years for upholding its principles, its discipline, its processes. It has succeeded because of partnership. As a private charity, Starehe started during the emergency in the 1950s, where street boys left over during the Mau Mau conflict were brought in as a place of safety in Ziwani. And some of the neighbors didn't even want these street boys brought to that rescue center. It's only later that people like Tom Boyer supported the school. He used to live in Ziwani, was a labor union leader, that became a patron of the school and has supported it. Starehe has succeeded in the last 60 years through those kinds of partnership and well wishes. One of the biggest partners of Starehe, even though it's a private institution, has been the government of Kenya. President Kenyatta gave Starehe its motto, Natulenge Juu. President Moi, for 24 years, visited the school almost every year, frequently encouraging the school, helping the school to grow and expand. It's under his leadership that Starehe became a top school in the nation. President Kibaki has been patron of the school almost 30 years. And today, people like President Uhuru continue to support. So the government of Kenya, leadership even at the highest level, has shown that commitment. My message to Kenyans would be, there is an injustice when you think a Starehe can do such a good job to transform the lives of somebody like me. But it's also so sad that there's only one Starehe. we need a Starehe in every county. And if people are so interested in this story of Starehe, and is so, you know, Starehe remains relevant, even if people say, oh, it's not as great as it used to be, it's not #1 as it used to be. There's a reason people feel a stake in Starehe in a special way that they don't feel for other places, because they know it's life-changing capacity and priority for boys from places with need, boys who are transformed into leadership and opportunity, who give back to society, and it's more than just academic success. And we need that opportunity, not just to the 280 boys who are accepted into Form 1 at Starehe. My message is we need a Starehe in every county, and we are thankful that there is one Starehe, but we need many more. And if we want to make Starehe relevant, make sure there's free secondary education, this capitation of 22,000, make it 50,000. Support the schools in a good way so that any child can go to a good government school and they don't have to be fighting about Mangu. Mangu is a fantastic school.
I want to bring in Anthony Oluoch, but before I do so, I want to be specific, because some Kenyans online and even on the messages that they have been sending feedback to us have been, they are a bit furious with how Starehe Boys Center treated that one young man who has now had to be moved to Mangu School, because they feel like the school was being discriminatory. Of course, there's a very long statement that Starehe Boys Center and School sent yesterday indicating how it admits. But do you feel, does the agitation from the members of the public that there is this discrimination of a child because of the conduct of the parents, does it have a place?
It is not about the conduct of the parent, about this child or discrimination. It's about following procedures and traditions. If Starehe didn't use its processes and apply them consistently, the flip side is the same public would say Starehe is corrupt. You cannot audit their process. You cannot explain. Last year, 4,500 boys applied to join Starehe this month. Starehe has to get 280 boys. That's a capacity they have. How do you select out of that? 70% are needy boys who pay 0 fees. And then the others who are taken, the 30% who are taken to Starehe, half of them pay partial fees, they're partially sponsored, and half of them pay full fees. So that is the tradition that has been. This was a charity set up for poor kids. How do you evaluate which are the poor kids? You put up a standard form, you do social workers and all boys doing the interviews, the home visits to clarify. You get the form certified by a religious leader and a chief to verify this information, and the school headmaster. So it's an opportunity. I thank Kenyans for being interested in Starehe. Celebrate Starehe, support it. We welcome any feedback where Starehe makes a mistake, to correct it. We have nothing to hide, but also to engage and tell head teachers out there that Starehe is still there. It's a good school. If you have a boy who's in need, who's talented and can benefit from Starehe, help them to fill out the yellow form. It's available online. Let them submit it so the school has the resources and the tools for which to do its process and judgment. So I think when you're living in a country where people are used to shortcuts, and Starehe sticking to doing their thing rightly can get condemned. But that's okay. You know, when you're the tree with the fruits, you get many sticks and stones thrown at you. That's fine, but I welcome many Kenyans as we celebrate 60 years of Starehe and 60 years into the future. Let's keep investing. Let's engage our government to make sure there's a Starehe-like opportunity in every county for every child, so they're not all parking at the gate of Starehe.
Are you convinced about that explanation about Starehe Boys and its policies and how it admits, and comparing that against what we have been treated to in the past few days of that boy who now is at Mangu?
Well, let me begin by saying that you know Starehe was a great idea. We must not bring down what really was a brilliant idea. It's brought up lots of leaders. Starehe was really never about excellence, though over the years they've been at the top. They're not really there yet, so people of course will criticize them because Jeffrey Griffin really put the Starehe at the top for a good number of years before you had the back and forth between Alliance, Kabrak and the other schools.
Including when I was there, we were at the top.
At the top, yes. So you took it down after you left.
We're still good.
The uniqueness of Starehe must be preserved. And if they can be helped to continue and improve and to be able to help needy people, I think all efforts need to be put towards that direction. But just like all good things, in any situation where a lot is expected of you when you are the person who is always at the top there. It is precisely for this reason that I am not very convinced that the manner in which this child was treated was proper. Starehe must observe its rules. It must be a stickler to the regulations and what has made Starehe Starehe. But this really wasn't about the child, and the argument needs to focus on the child. Number one, was the child in the bracket where you call him a needy person? No. Was the child in the bracket where you say he performed well? You cannot begrudge him that. Was the child put in any situation in which he had an altercation, an exchange, some behavioral something where you can say the child has behaved? Because if you're going to discipline anybody, you cannot discipline the parent. The parent is not admitted. It's the child. Yes. So it's a behavior of the child and the rights of the child which ought to have been given center stage in this thing. There are ways in which we could have admonished or punished or redressed the question of the rudeness between the teacher and the parent, and we have all manner of parents. But for us to visit this on the child, I think that was wrong. I think it breached the rights of this child which are protected under the Constitution. So having said that, really, I grew up in the environs of Starehe, growing up between Isli and Madare and Kariako. And we had lots of run-ins, and it's a school we used to really revere. As kids, very naughty, crossing over, and Mr. Shaw would chase us through with his old Citron. And one time I had a one-on-one conversation with him, and he told me, get the hell out of this school, and he would be with his big body. So Starehe is a unique thing. Let's preserve it, but that does not mean that Starehe is excluded or exempt from following regulations. I have 2 points here in addition to this treatment. Starehe maintains this unique position of being private in sorts, and it has lots of partnerships. These partners include the government. These partners includes the TTC. These partners includes me and you, who put in our taxes to send in teachers there. They expect us to send capitation for some of those people. So when you have things that seems to go behind what is a big, brilliant, nice idea, but underneath there is lots of disregard for government, the directives, form a board of governors that follows this kind of regulations. They say we won't do that. The principal ought to be the person who is the secretary to the board. We won't do that. It's the director. Yet you expect government finances, you expect government teachers, you expect all the assistance that you can get from government, and not follow the rules, and you want to play by your own rules. I think Starehe needs to be able to play as part of what is expected of other schools.
Mheshimiwa Okoth is burning to respond.
I know.
That's your final point as we wind up.
I would just say again, my honorable friend has contradicted himself. He has said, and these are some issues he said that are just not correct. One of the biggest partners for Starehe is the government of Kenya. And this allegation that we don't follow government rules is flat out false. You know, so let's just put that on the side. You know, we get teachers from TSC. Out of the about 68 teachers at Starehe, 47 come from TSC. That's a huge contribution from the government of Kenya. But you cannot hold it as a threat to the school and say, you know, we will take away these teachers. Because then what he's saying to the 1,000 boys who are in there, we will take away your capitation.
If the other schools follow these rules, why would Starehe?
I allowed you to speak.
Yes, and please answer to the question, why would Starehe follow the rules?
Because Starehe is a private institution that has this partnership. It follows the rules. You're alleging it's not following the rules. It is following the rules. So that I'm just happy to correct you on and tell you that this is a Kenyan boy. If you meet the requirements, if you're interested in Starehe, please out the form. You know, if you want a passport today, Mheshimiwa, you cannot go to Nyayo House without filling the form and get a new passport. You have to fill it out. The page is 4 pages, and this form serves a purpose that helps us to answer the question that this Starehe, which he thinks is a good idea, is serving boys from Madare and Kibra fairly. The day we say we don't need these forms, anybody in the ministry can decide who goes to Madare. It will be only the people who can line up at the ministry and influence and have contacts at the ministry who will be getting into Starehe, and we won't have it. But that's neither here nor there. Let us celebrate Starehe at 6 60. Let us take any feedback to improve. Let us do a better job of communication on how we engage with the government as our biggest stakeholder and partner and other people. And let us make sure for every child in Kenya, there is a Starehe. Because there is one Starehe in Nairobi is not enough. The transformation and the gift I got from Starehe is not enough. In fact, as a matter of justice, we need an opportunity in this country for every child to get a quality
I'm sorry I have to cut you short because we are practically out of time, waiting into Dr. Kidero's time.
Yes, I was just going to summarize this by saying, I once read a book which I always try to look for to read all the time, very small book, which I would recommend to the school management in Starehe. It's called The 1 Minute Manager. And the basic principle or thread that runs through this book is simple. Isolate the bad habit or misdemeanor and spare the person. If there was a wrong that was done by the parent and it is not this child, that ought to have been pointed and corrected. The self-esteem and the dignity of this child should not have been subjected to what the parent had did.
All right, and I want to read an excerpt of what Starehe Boys Center and School Management sent out, and says that that in this year, the Ministry of Education indicated that they wished to do only one round of selection through the National Education Management Information System, popularly known as NEMIS, and recommended an additional 24 boys for admission. And whilst that was inconsistent with Starehe's selection process, the center took into account Starehe's long-standing relationship with the ministry to make an exception for this year only. Starehe wrote on 6th of December to inform the ministry, and these candidates would have to comply with the requirements of filling that yellow form. And they said that of the 24 candidates, 23 complied with the requirements and secured admission into Starehe. Only one did not comply, and the case was referred back to the ministry for further action. So that's the position according to the Starehe Boys Center. It's a very long statement. I believe it's 2 pages of it has 14 paragraphs into it, very detailed. I'm sure the conversation continues. And it shows clearly that Starehe cooperates with the ministry, and the false narrative that Starehe doesn't listen or follow ministry rules is just not there.
All right. Ken, you're an alumni of the school. You're not part of management. You're speaking like you sit on the management
I don't want to reopen this conversation because...
basic English. You cannot allege things that are not factual. Starehe was sent 24 boys from the ministry. They took 23. You cannot bash Starehe maliciously and expect me to keep quiet about it. All right, Mheshimiwa Okoth, thank you so much. Hilary, and by the way, we celebrate Mangu High School for taking that boy. I know he'll be successful.
We would have celebrated Starehe more for retaining him.
That's fine.
Honorable Lodge,
we celebrate Mangu.
Both of you are from Nairobi. I'm sure we can have a sitting with the management of the Starehe Boys Center and School and discuss further in as far as this is concerned. Hilary Ngasura says that we only need a referendum to reduce counties from 47 to 14, to reduce constituencies from 290 to 120, get rid of women representatives, get rid of nominated positions, anything else, especially Prime Minister's post, and having regional blocks, then we don't need it. Wow.
Punguza mzigo is a mentality.
Yes, I'm not sure you will succeed that. The two gentlemen just told you that once you give something to Kenyans, you cannot take it back. So now, thank you, Mheshimiwa Okoth and Anthony Lodge from Mathare, from Kibra, for making time for us on Daybreak.